Heal to feel. Let's start this journey together.
It's very hard as intended parents coming into surrogacy to like know how the heck to do this. Like no one's supposed to know how to do this.
It's a different world.
Right.
And you're meeting this person in a vacuum, not having ever met a surrogate before. You're like, what do I ask? What do I say? What do I do? And so we're really there to help guide that conversation and give them confidence of knowing that they're making the right choices on this path, because it's really freaking scary. Like I always say, on its face, like surrogacy at the start of it is you're envisioning a stranger carrying your baby.
Yeah.
Like that is crazy.
Yep.
And so when you have the right support to help guide you and give you that confidence, and when you meet the person who is going to end up doing this for you and she becomes real and has a name and a face and you learn about her family, like I love seeing that fear and apprehension just lift from my clients' shoulders.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Welcome back to Heal to Feel. Today we have two very special ladies that have joined us. So thank you guys for coming.
Thank you for having us.
I know you both on a personal level. Layla is like my family. We met in baby class when our kids were,
3 months old.
3 months old, and now they're about to be 12.
Baby's first class.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Except we
Yeah.
didn't have Jackie. We had
Sue.
We had Sue, the South African that talked like this, like me.
Ooh, who else talks like that? You. She keeps promising me she'll do a full episode in that accent.
I'm going to do a full episode
That'd
in my
be
South
amazing.
African accent.
It's my favorite.
So Layla and I met, and then Stephanie, we met at, our kids went to preschool together for a little bit. I think my kid was there 1 year.
Yeah.
Austin.
And play basketball.
Yeah,
For,
they
like,
play
the season.
basketball together. So both of you guys, first of all, I'm so proud of you because they both have started their own businesses, which is incredible, especially as women in the workforce. Woohoo. But you guys are both in Layla, you're a genetic counselor and you worked for Dr. Platt, who is very well known.
Correct.
And he's a high risk OB-GYN.
Yeah,
right?
he's one of the top maternal fetal medicine specialists in California
And you ran all his genetic.
for many years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we're going to discuss what that is. And then Stephanie, she works, and both these subjects, IVF, surrogacy, they're kind of these subject matters that are people have held it very private or there's shame around it. So we're here to bring awareness and kind of make it more open and how many people do struggle creating families. But Stephanie, you started Family Match Consulting, and that is a company that, you go to all the different agencies as opposed to just working with one agency, and you go ahead and find the best surrogate match in a much shorter time span, correct? Than a lot of like their own. And then you also work with egg donors and sperm donors. So we'll get into that. And Layla, you recently left Dr. Platt's office, and I'm so proud of you because we talked about it this summer, and I was like, go on your own. And she created Genevie,
Correct.
which means what? Because I love the name.
So it's the word gene and life together.
Love that. It's a very sexy word. I kind of like
Thank
it.
you. Thank you.
It is.
It's really good. And now you're doing genetic testing, on your own. So we'll get into that because that's also so important that I think a lot of people are unaware of.
Yeah.
And also we're going to bring in Kimberly, our producer, and MJ because they have their very own stories where it was hard for them to get pregnant with certain pregnancies.
Yeah.
So you guys will discuss that. So
It'll be
let's
great.
start. Well, Stephanie, you and randomly, me and Layla know each other, but it turns out you gave Layla her first job out of school.
My first job. Yeah. We were sitting next to each other at my cousin's holiday party.
That's right.
And we're sitting there and nobody knows what a genetic counselor is.
Yeah.
Like, unless you've met one because you've gone through something, like you've never heard of this. And she's like, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I'm just about to graduate a master's program. And she's like, in what? And I was like, genetic counseling. And immediately she was like, yeah, I need one of those. Call me when you graduate. And I was like, I'm sorry, what?
That's awesome.
And I was like the only student who had a job prior to graduating. Yeah,
Wow.
which was amazing.
And that's got to be almost 20 years ago now,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
It was 2011 is when I graduated.
Because like Layla, you're like 5. So how are you? It was the baby of the group, of our friend
I
group.
wish.
Okay, so tell us, first of all, what is genetic counseling? And, I think a lot of people aren't aware, because I know, I was very blessed to have an easy pregnancy, and we didn't do genetic testing till like, I feel like way into pregnancy. I remember taking 1 million vials of blood, but that's it. And you're saying there's so many things that can be prevented.
Correct.
And horror stories that can be prevented if we're proactive.
Correct.
So why don't you tell us what it is?
Yeah, because I'm immediately thinking that there are people that get pregnant naturally, and then there are people that are going through the IVF process that find out that they have chromosomal issues or genetic things that are happening in either their partner or themselves.
Right.
So I'm wondering how they would have found out if they were natural pregnancies rather than IVF.
Correct.
So that was just kind of important.
Genetic counseling is kind of a newer field in the world of science and medicine. It's a master's program in genetic counseling. I did a master's in genetics and then another master's in genetic counseling. People come from like all walks of life. And you have to be board certified and licensed. It's a multi-year program. And you really learn about all the different fields of genetics and the genetic testing and like the human aspect of it, like how to walk patients through the decision of, should I be tested for it? What are the risks? What are the benefits? Is this information that's important to me, or is it just going to be a gray cloud over my head? It's such a subjective personal experience. So you meet with somebody who does an assessment of your family history, learns about you, your goals,
and
what you want.
And is this before getting pregnant is probably the best,
So
or do people
that's
wait?
what I was thinking.
That's why that's why I created Genevie, because there's a big focus on what we do is preconception testing. And even if you're not looking to get pregnant or start a family, there's a lot of proactive wellness testing that you can do if you have a family history of cancer, if you have a family history of heart disease, things you don't even think of, that there's so much action you can take if you know what you're at risk for. And so I was a prenatal genetic counselor for many years, worked with infertility, worked with high-risk pregnancies. If you have a family history of something, if you're Ashkenazi Jewish and you're at different risk
That's
for
me.
different, correct. Yeah.
Me and my husband are 99%.
Yeah.
So that was a scary test.
People are talking about the prenuvo scan, and like, now this sounds like another way of finding out if you have things instead of going that route.
Yeah, Prenuvo is great. I love the technology. It's an amazing company and it's saved many lives. It would be nice to have that in addition to knowing what you're at risk for. So for example, if you know that you carry a breast cancer mutation, you're going to do Prenuvo and then maybe an breast MRI or a mammogram. Your whole assessment is different. You know what you're looking for and what you're at risk for. Some people think like, if I do this genetic testing, it's just telling me something bad that might happen. There's nothing I can do about it, which is absolutely not true. If it's ordered by a professional who knows you, knows your goals, and works with the most reputable laboratories, it should all be clinically actionable information that
So
you're
then
obtaining.
if you tell me, okay, you carry this gene, what can I do about it?
So if a person carried a gene, for example, to bring the breast cancer risk back, then you're going to have breast MRIs and mammograms maybe every 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And you might consider a prophylactic oophorectomy.
That's a big word.
Yeah.
Oophorectomy.
So smart. That's why I like her.
So an oophorectomy is a procedure where you remove the ovaries, and it's often done with a hysterectomy where you remove the entire uterus. And for people who are at risk for breast and ovarian cancer or other hereditary cancer syndromes, it can be a life-saving surgery, especially if you're done having kids, et cetera. It decreases your risk of developing cancer rapidly. And we all know that ovarian cancer is one of those secret killer type of cancers because the symptoms of ovarian cancer are symptoms that women feel all the time: bloating, cramping, constipation, all those things that every day you're like, what's wrong with me?
So I think it's just the gut.
Correct.
The stomach doctors.
The screening is poor, and
What is the screening for? I'm freaking out right now. I have to go. No, I'm kidding. I don't have those. No, but not fallopian tubes, by the way, because there's some people that have miscarriages and then something bad happens to their fallopian tube. We could put a marker on that, but I just want to make sure but you don't need to. Ectopic pregnancies. Sorry. Okay, for later.
Yeah. So I think some of the reasons that people don't do genetic testing is that they feel like, I don't want to just have that gray cloud. But if you really talk to a professional who can guide you, you can figure out a curated plan that makes sense for you.
Okay. Can you talk about chromosomal mutation that you said if you have a mutation, you said that, but I wanted to know if you can explain what a mutation is and how you find out
Yeah.
about that.
So if you imagine our DNA is written like a book, a code, like paragraph sentences, a mutation is a typo. Some mutations, like if you take the word gray, you can spell it Grey, Gray. Your body knows what to do with it. Your body can still make sense of that sentence and therefore create the protein or whatever is needed. But if you have Grxey, your body would read that sentence and go, I don't know what this sentence means. And that is going to have some type of consequence. We all carry mutations. It's thought that we each carry about 8 very serious mutations. So it's really when
We all carry about 8
8 serious ones. Yeah, 8 to 10. We all have many, many mutations that like either make us different or unique and don't cause any consequence, right? But we have some mutations that can be very detrimental. Usually it's not a problem because we have 2 copies of every gene. One gene is functioning, one gene is not. Having one gene that functions is absolutely sufficient. But if you make a baby with somebody who happens to have that same typo and you both pass down that typo, then the baby has no backup working copy and then would manifest that
But then,
disease.
so you find that out and you both have that. Now what?
So if you're not pregnant already, you can do IVF, which is great. You can use an egg donor. You can use a sperm donor.
Wait, you have to?
Say that again?
If you fall into that category, then you have to use an egg or
You don't have
sperm.
to.
You can make the decision and eliminate the risk.
But at least you know you're in the driver's seat. So you know that this is something you're at risk for. You can say, you know what, this disease is not a make or break for us. We don't care. We're going to get educated and learn everything about this. So when this baby is born, we are on top of it. We are plugged into the right communities. We're with the right specialists. Or you could say, no, this is something that if we can prevent, we would like to. So we might go down the IVF route. And that way we can test the embryos and select for the embryos that don't have that mutation.
And for some abnormalities, they can build out a probe that will test the embryo for that specific thing. And so that's an option as well.
Exactly.
I think what's interesting is that, IVF is just a buzzword and we don't really know what the reasons are that I went and someone else and my, so many of my cousins, my personal experience, if I'm not jumping too far ahead. So I was very late to the game of, settling down, certainly didn't want to get married. I was very resistant to all of it. I had no sense of biological clock. And Dr. Shaheen Gadir, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with. Yeah, and I wondered if you and I ever crossed paths before because your face is so familiar.
Potentially. I was actually on Dr. Gadir's podcast.
That's probably why.
Yeah.
Okay. Shout out. So I ran into him at Chaconi's back in the, before the dark ages and fire was discovered. And he was like, you're my only friend who hasn't froze her eggs. Why haven't you frozen your eggs? And I was very resistant to very low key offended. I was like, do not tell me that I need to do not involve science in my love. I was so unrealistic. And I was misled by watching Selma Hayek on Oprah Winfrey at the age of 43 tell the world that she had this successful pregnancy with her daughter Valentina. And I therefore put a marker on that. And I was like, oh my God, I have until at least 43. Done.
How old were you at this time?
Much younger than her.
Oh.
Yeah. But still ripe and ready to settle down. Yep. And so therefore, I always thought, what a misconception. Women think that because we hear about women getting pregnant naturally or through IVF and having success stories at much later ages than other women where, one of my friends had early menopause, perimenopause in their mid to late 20s. Oh, wow. And it was a hereditary thing that she knew comes from a great family. So she knew because it was very important that they have children. And so most people don't have access to that type of information.
No.
Right? So I finally went into Dr. Gadir. The cameras were rolling. I was so focused on taking the stigma away from the infertility journey because I didn't even understand the shame. I always thought, who cares if the world knows? If I'm infertile, I'm the one that's going to have to live with it, not these people. So why wouldn't I want to share it? So
And what year was this?
this would have been around, I want to say season 3 or 4 of Shaw's, which was, I would say if that was, we started about 10 years ago. So 4 years in, so 5-6 years ago.
Also so important in the Persian community to talk about that because
Your
it's
guys'
such
culture, there is
a
so much
hush type of thing.
judgment.
So I feel like often my Persian patients are like, I don't know anyone who's gone through IVF. And I'm like, I know all your cousins and they've all gone through IVF, but they're not talking about it.
They're coming into the clinic at 5:30 in the morning.
100%.
Before the lights are on.
100%.
And so did my castmate while I was doing it.
Yeah, in like a hat and sunglasses.
Big
And so
betrayal.
like you did, it's such a gift to the community that you were so outspoken about it and
MJ's
public
so
about it.
open.
I
about
was really proud of
everything.
that. Well, I was going through it, and then my castmate was calling me to find out my progress while she was secretly going through it and just wanted to see how things were going for me while we're going to the same doctor at the exact same time. And I found out much later, but I did an ultrasound to find out what my number is. What is that called again? If you have any follicles.
Androgen follicle count.
Correct.
Exactly. So I was so lucky that I had so many, so later than maybe the average age, but it was just something that people were not doing out in the open.
Correct.
So what I found out was that my husband's sperm, sorry, Tommy, again, his sperm was great, but they were never going to swim upstream
lazy?
enough. They were bad
Motility.
they do. They need to get a little diver or whatever you call it. Yeah, they needed help. And so I was so thrown aback that so many women are not the infertility problem, that half the time, or tell us the stats about that.
It's 40% men, 40% women,
No
20% unexplained.
No way.
And I fell into the unexplained category when I was 10 years into helping people create families. I found myself a patient at an infertility doctor's office, and I fell into that 20% unexplained category, which is really frustrating because
It's
as
so
a patient, you're like,
frustrating.
please just like find
Yeah, but I
something.
feel like spiritually, everything that happened to you, because this is your life path, you wouldn't have maybe gotten into this field. And you can talk about how, tell them your personal story, how, what drew you to this subject matter.
Yeah, so my infertility stuff didn't happen until 10 years into already doing this work, which was really interesting because it was very hard for me to go through it, and I had lived that every day. And so it made me just want to help people even more because I thought these people who are not exposed to this every day, how are they managing this? It's really hard. But the whole reason why I started in this field initially was just how I came into this world.
Yeah.
So my mom needed a complete hysterectomy when she was 13 years old.
Oh, no.
I know.
my God.
She had just a random fluke infection, and the only way that the doctors felt like they could save her life was to do the hysterectomy. And
Wait,
so
are you adopted?
I'm adopted. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And a really fun story that I like to tell is my mom as a teenager, she, knew that this had occurred and obviously knew she couldn't have kids before she even thought about having kids. But she met my dad and they were dating and she fell in love with him, and too much time had passed where she's like, I just can't tell him because I didn't tell him. And so I'm going to hold on to this big, huge secret. And the day he proposed marriage, he literally got down on one knee and asked if she would marry him. And she just started crying. And he's like, what's wrong? And she said, well, before I answer, I have to tell you something.
Oh my God, I have chills.
Oh,
So sad.
And she did. And he's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry you went through that. I guess we'll adopt. Are you going to marry me or not?
I love that.
And they've been married to this day, and they adopted me and later adopted who became my sister and then my brother. And
Wow.
I just, really love the idea of helping people like my parents. And so surrogacy and egg donation, sperm donation is the path that it ended up
love that.
taking.
I love that. So you own Family Match Consulting. When did you start that?
We turned 10 in February of this year.
Muscles.
Congratulations.
So tell us kind of what you do for everybody that doesn't know, and how
She's
you're
being
different.
all down to earth. This is like the premier company that everybody, she's like not going to say this, but that everybody goes to.
Name 'em.
All the top
Name 'em.
people.
Tell
You'll
us
see, they'll
everybody.
post it themselves. They do.
Yeah, I
Who's
saw
pregnant right
Us
now?
Weekly
Yeah.
stars. They're just like
Yeah.
us.
So
Let's get those magazines
let's just
back
put
in
that
the
out there.
newsstand so that we can.
Okay.
She's a very big deal.
So
Oh, stop, Lila.
you worked for an agency before.
I did, yeah.
What prompted you to want to start your own kind of service that now gives people so much more access to different surrogates as opposed to just one group?
Yeah, so my whole career started working for an agency that I worked at for a few years and just kind of learned the ropes. And then a colleague that I worked with at that agency, we had decided to branch off and start our own agency. And so we ran that together for 10 years before I sold the agency and then moved into started Family Match. And I wanted to do that to just provide like a different way to do this process. Our goal is to, if I were to explain our kind of 3 highest level goals, they're to match clients as quickly as possible, because surrogacy, for example, is a very, very long process. And there are agencies, for example, that will put intended parents, as they're called in this process, on a year-long wait list, sometimes even 2 years. And that's just too long for many people who have already gone through years of infertility.
IVF or
And
whatever.
exactly. So we match most of our clients within about 3 months, give or take. And then secondly is we want to really prioritize finding the right candidates. Like the person you're trusting to do this most important thing is by far the most important piece in all of this. And so for me, this idea of like going to a single agency and being tied to just the surrogates that one agency happens to be working with, it just didn't approach it in the way I would want to as an intended parent. And so we cast a much larger net so that we're able to really find the right candidates for our clients, because it's very hard to find a good surrogate. There's a lot of criteria that goes into being approved for surrogacy.
So how long's your process?
3 months
Oh, 3
ish to
months, 3
match.
months.
And then it's usually about, there's so many variables, but let's call it 4 to 6 months
4 to 6
until an
months.
embryo transfer from there, and then
That's-
pregnancy.
That's really
It's
good.
very
Well,
quick.
I mean, that is really, really good.
I have an embryo, but I like had it's hard for me to articulate. It's really, really hard for me to say it out loud, but I lost my uterus at the birth process. So they had to take it. So I thought that I was going to be able to put that embryo back in my body very quickly. Like Rihanna kept getting pregnant, and she's pregnant with baby number 3 now. So
Both of them are like, she's our client.
yeah,
Patient.
they're like, we know, we put her. No, so what happened was I had placenta accreta. So and Dr. Steve Rad didn't see it. He's the best of the best of the best, and you guys already know that. So he's a fetal medicine high risk doctor.
Maternal fetal medicine. Yeah.
There we go. But it just wasn't visible. We went to the doctor all the time. He, did everything, and it was whatever. It was just something that they didn't know was happening. So after my baby was safely delivered,
You could have died.
yeah, I lost. I had like 19 platelets and transfusions. It was like
Christ.
they looked at me
So
like they were
dangerous.
looking at a ghost. They truly saved my life. I know that, shout out to all the people at Cedars. And I mean, even the doctor, also Persian, who gave me my epidural, they all came back to see me. And I knew that was because what had happened was so serious. 5 hours to save my life, and thank God. And I also, like, if you would have told me I was about to have such a life-threatening emergency, I would have been like, I'll be fine. I'm not going anywhere right now. But it was truly, truly terrifying. Yeah. Tommy had the worst day of his life. To this day, he just was waiting because they handed him the baby immediately. And then I was, like gone for about 4 to 5 hours. So it's the longest 4 to 5 hours of his life. And one of the things with Tommy, not to stray, is that he thought he was being punished, lost his mother, was going to lose his wife. Because that 4 to 5 hours that they were saving my life with all these blood transfusions. And because I lost so much, whatever. So I was on the table and Dr. Rad said, "You're losing so much blood. We're going to have to take it," like before the anesthesiologist put me under. And I looked at him and I just remember like looking up and I was just like, what am I going to say? No.
Right.
So it was a very vivid memory and experience. But then for me, surrogacy is too expensive and it's just not attainable or possible. And therefore, I just said, be blessed with what you have. And that frozen embryo that we don't know the gender of. And it's like there was this day where I called Dr. Gadir and I asked him, can we like pop it into someone, not having any plan? We still don't. He was like, yeah, just whatever. He told me like, find somebody, encouraging me to like do it fast. But, I'm obsessed with my son and I have to work for a living. So I'm not even sure if I'm capable of like having a second. I respect the hustle of being a mother of two rather than
But
one.
what's crazy is the psychic medium has come on twice.
Yes.
And like she keeps getting messages that you're meant to have a second. You're going to have
Wow.
a second.
Yeah,
This is
and I'm
important.
like-
You're meant to have a second. And then she asked Tom and he's like, yeah, I want to. And like,
Yeah, he would love to, of
yeah,
course.
you never know. But like her boy's amazing. Your boy's amazing.
Yeah, you never know. But I'm relying on you guys because I'm an only child. So that is my one chance. And I know that they are frozen, but what happens if the freezer breaks? Like what happens? Like what do we do? And I know that they're not as like strong if they're frozen forever as like, things can happen, but maybe you're developing science for people like me, people who it's too late for them to harvest their eggs, or just, things that like you also want to have more kids, but you could just get pregnant
I'm
today.
done.
No, but you can. You could right now, you could be pregnant again.
I could, but I'm
Yeah.
not.
But what's interesting that I've also thought is that what if she wanted to harvest her eggs just in case like her future generations could access your genetics on ice? And then like,
How does that work?
maybe your grandchildren want to have some Leots and Trevs. That's where my mind goes. It goes to like 2075 or maybe.
Well, oftentimes you need to put who would own your frozen embryos in your will or in your trust, because in the event that you die unexpectedly and you have frozen embryos, they need to know what to do with those. Yeah. So I often tell my couples, like, don't forget, like in your trust, the same way you put your house and all your other things, like you do need to say what would happen to your embryos. Mm-hmm. It's interesting.
Yeah.
What, Kimberly, our producer over there, she's not on camera, but you had your own story, and you also have a story to share. But you went to Dr. Platt, where Layla works, so she could have run your genetic testing. For all you guys realize.
Are you crying? Are you crying?
After hearing
She cries at every show.
I definitely cry at every show, and you sharing that, MJ, is incredible, and I'm proud of you. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, we never knew that.
I think that kind of.
Oh,
I think I just want to say about the whole IVF journey that when we talk about, keeping your cards close and not being proud and being ashamed as a woman, especially, but even if it's your husband, after having gone through it for baby number 3, the first 2 I got pregnant first time, easy. But one thing that I used to think before I realized I was going to have to go through IVF was, what are you going to tell your kid? You were in a test tube, you were in a Petri dish. Like, how do people explain that? Are they ashamed? Are they embarrassed? Having now gone through IVF, I will say that it is the single most proud thing I've ever done in my life. And my biggest accomplishment in my life
Absolutely.
is getting
Absolutely.
my baby in my arms. And the reason for that, what I didn't understand, is when you're going through IVF, it is like fighting a war. Mentally,
is.
physically, spiritually. I manifested, and I've had psychics tell me, which is a great dovetail into our subject matter here, is I manifested my baby London so hard. Like, I tell her every night, you're my angel. Thank you for meeting me here. And
Wow.
I do believe that God delayed her coming because he or she or spirits knew that she was going to take me through the loss of my mother.
Wow.
And I'm so grateful for that journey. And so I'm only sharing that for folks out there that might be in that moment or in these hard moments of fighting for a baby, whether it's surrogacy, whether it's IVF or some other, maybe an adoption journey or something. Be proud of that fight. There is no shame, none. And it makes it that much sweeter when you're holding that baby and you have so much more gratitude. And I can't wait to tell London how much we fought for her because we wanted her here with us so
Yeah.
badly.
Absolutely.
That's beautiful. And I know where this book is going to go when I leave. I'll write a note to London because you talk about having these conversations with children, which is a really important thing to think about. And so it's why I published this book from the start, a book about love and making families. And it talks about just all the ways families are created to help normalize that conversation, whether it be IVF, egg donation, sperm donation, surrogacy, adoption. That was the point of this, but
I was literally
Yeah, I
gonna
was like,
piggyback. So like, that's the perfect leeway into that. But
Perfect.
yeah, Stephanie wrote a children's book, and this is to help, because kids who are it's just like these subject matters need to become more normalized. Like, there's no shame. Who cares how you got there, right? It's like
Never
people
thought of it.
losing weight. There's so much shame about all these injections. Who cares? Get
No,
healthy.
I never-
Why does everyone
yeah.
care? So
Yeah,
for me,
I never
that's
even
so
thought
important.
I never even thought about the test tube thing. But Tommy also is like, there's that stigma, and I said, who
Yeah.
ever would even think that?
It's
You've got the
disgusting how
baby,
people judge.
and and then he also says, well, the good thing about IVF is the doctor gets to spin the best of both of us, and that's how they make the embryo. And I'm like, I don't know if that's a thing, but we'll go with it.
we'll go with it. Yeah.
But so that children's book, when did you write that?
A few years ago now. So I wrote it with my best friend. Her name's Alana Weiss. She's also a mom through IVF. And we've just always been like so open and honest about, our struggles. And the thing about, there's a lot of children's book on the market that kind of speak to like surrogacy or like all these different things, which is so great and so important. But I could not find a single book that encompassed all the different ways families can come to be.
Yeah.
And so what this does is it kind of puts into context in the broader world of family building for a child, like, hey, this is how I came into this world, which is so cool. But there's also all these other ways that families are also created. So that was the goal. But the other thing I wanted to say is, like, you're so right. When you go through these challenges to start or grow your family and you're finally there holding your baby, it's like you can almost have gratitude for the struggles, because had you have not gone through what you did, like, it wouldn't be them, and you can't imagine it being any other, human in your arms.
Correct.
Yeah. And I want to say something about the gratitude piece is very important as well. Every time I went to take one of those shots, which there was a lot of them, I did I did a prayer for all the families out there that couldn't access the shot yet, or the technology, didn't have the resources. And I just, prayed for them. And I just, every single time I took a shot, I would hold it in my arms and I would visualize in my hands, and I would visualize other struggling families like myself. And I would just pray for them. And I would just say, thank you for letting me be the one that has access to this resource. So I just want to say, if there's people out there ashamed of this, don't be. Don't let anyone shame you about how you fight your journey to get your family. Whatever that means for you, be proud. Stand strong in your power in that, because you have that vision of your child, because you feel their soul. You
Yeah.
know that they're meant to be with you. And I kept telling my mom, because I already had a boy and a girl.
Right.
So people are like, what are you doing? I just said to my mom, I feel a baby. I know I'm not done. I feel a soul. I didn't know if it was a boy or a girl, but I just want other women and men to stand in that power and own that experience and be proud of it. I wear it like a badge of honor and no one will ever shame me for it. So I just,
Never.
hopefully that gives some folks support for what they're going through.
I love that. And there's a whole nother
Amen. Yes.
group of people, gay men, that's a whole nother section of people that, there's no struggle. They just can't biologically hold a child. So
Or
that's,
women because they need the sperm.
yeah. But,
Or
what about
single
people that
women
can't
that-
afford it? Because it's so expensive.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
really expensive.
What do we do, the ones of us who can't afford the surrogate, but we might want one because our producer says I have to?
Well, we will
Kimberly
talk.
will carry
That's what I was thinking.
I would carry your
She'll do
baby
you a
for you.
solid.
I would, but I don't know if I qualify. Actually, can you speak on that, Stephanie? Like right now, I'm 40 years old. What are the qualifications? Because there might be a cohort of people listening that are interested in becoming a surrogate. What are those qualifications?
Yeah, so you could be a surrogate.
Sign
Technically-
Kimberly up.
Yeah, we'll
gonna
talk
carry your
after.
This is going to bond us forever, honey.
Most doctors prefer that a surrogate be under the age of 40. There's exceptions, especially if you know the person carrying for you. There's so much value in that. But all surrogates are moms already, so they've had at least one healthy, uncomplicated pregnancy and delivery. There's certain, lifestyle requirements that she, live a healthy lifestyle, have good family support, be financially stable, just be healthy, have a healthy BMI. Doctors like to look at BMI. They have to pass background checks. They go through psychological evaluation, full medical evaluations. It's actually a very small percentage of women who apply to become surrogates who actually go on to carry a
And
child.
do you have
for
to
someone.
genetically test them because they're just carrying? Does it matter?
They are not genetically tested, but they have to go through different medical evaluations
it.
to make sure that they can carry.
But she will screen like sperm and egg donors,
Correct.
for example.
Got it.
Yep.
What about the one that there was a surrogate that allegedly carried Jeff's last embryo, and she had a condition that she did not share or disclose, and unfortunately, the transfer didn't take. Didn't survive. Do you remember?
Try for a second baby, yeah.
So, when Khloe Kardashian spoke about her surrogate for her second baby, she talked about not feeling connected when the baby came. But I thought, how about if your surrogate is so down for you that you can go and hang out and like lay down like us and like listen to music together and talk to while your surrogate is in utero, so that you can feel. Is that so crazy to ask, or is there that kind of local?
And second part of that question, they have to, I know with Jeff and his first baby, like she was up north. So like they didn't
Yes.
see her a lot. Do you find that, because then that narrows the search if it's somewhere close? So
And also Andy Cohen, surrogacy is not allowed in New York. So his,
I didn't know
It is now.
it is now.
yeah.
Okay.
So when he had his son, she had to be in California. So he definitely wasn't around.
Yeah. So how does that work?
There's like so many questions in there.
Yeah, I was like, should we write this down?
Pew, 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 pew. It's in the book. Get the book.
We're not even letting her answer. We're like, and.
And just don't
I'm
want to
trying
forget
to remember,
anything.
but
No, we'll remember. We're an army.
So first, I wanted to speak to the what if something is found like medically that she didn't disclose. It's hard for that to occur just because there's so much vetting that goes into the process prior to that. Like, for example, the reproductive doctors looking at all medical records from all of her past pregnancies and deliveries. So if there's anything of concern there, they're not going to approve her as a candidate. Also, they're looking at her uterus. They're checking her blood work, her hormones, infectious disease screening. So is there a possibility of that? Sure, but it would have to be something that's like not findable easily. So that's one. Second, as far as like the relationship between the parents and the surrogate, we see it's like on a spectrum. Like on one hand, there's not much contact at all. And on this hand, they become really close friends. And I have clients who like travel once a year with their surrogate and her family, and they've become really close. And it's so awesome when that occurs. But I'd say both of these ends of the spectrum are the rarest. Like most often it's somewhere in the middle where the parents will like go to a few appointments during the pregnancy. And then after birth, the relationship kind of fizzles out, but they'll send pictures once a year or, holiday gifts to the kids or something like
Does
that.
the surrogate kind of get attached a little bit? Is it kind of weird? Or have you seen?
Typically,
No? Okay.
not typically. And part of that is because, again, all surrogates are mothers already. And they, when you talk to surrogates, they speak about like the birth as like one of the most profound experiences of their life, like watching parents take hold of baby in their arms for the first time. Like I call it the grand finale of this epic journey that everyone's gone on together. And then they're really happy they get to go home and like rest and not take care of a newborn.
Yeah.
Have a drink. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, it's just a very different experience than.
But there is something like I think if I had a surrogate, I would want to be good friends because you're still living in an environment that
Yes.
they're living in for 9 months.
definitely.
So
Totally.
I don't know. I would want to be a part of it if I could.
For sure.
And I
During
think
the
that's
time.
part of your matching is what they're looking for in that relationship with the surrogate and what the surrogate is open to.
And then Stephanie, because the other agencies have done the vetting for you, right?
In a
do
sense,
you
yeah.
do like a second round of vetting because now it's your reputation on the line?
So we get to look at a much smaller pool. So like if on a given week, we'll see maybe 5 to 25 profiles of candidates that these agencies have brought in. Maybe 30% or so end up being candidates that we feel comfortable presenting to our clients. So we just get to look at like more kind of restrictive criteria as a result. And then for clients who retain us to be a part of their like whole surrogacy journey, we're involved in the matching process where we are like meeting the surrogate with our clients so we can really have eyes on her and ask her all the questions that we know need to be asked and just make sure it's a good fit. It's very hard as intended parents coming into surrogacy to like know how the heck to do this. Like no one's
Right.
supposed to know
It's
how
a
to
different
do this.
world.
Right.
And you're meeting this person in a vacuum, not having ever met a surrogate before. You're like, what do I ask? What do I say? What do I do? And so we're really there to help guide that conversation and give them confidence of knowing that they're making the right choices on this path because it's really freaking scary. Like I always say on its face, like surrogacy at the start of it is you're envisioning a stranger carrying your baby.
Yeah.
Like that is crazy.
Yep.
And so when you have the right support to help guide you and give you that confidence, and when you meet the person who is going to end up doing this for you and she becomes real and has a name and a face and you learn about her family, like I love seeing that fear and apprehension just lift from my client's
Yeah.
shoulders because
And-
they're like, I could see this.
And financially, it is only
Yeah.
to people that can afford it right now.
It is very expensive. There are a lot of like grant programs
Yeah.
available, interest-free loans. So, I mean, if
So
anyone
you can do financing.
yeah,
Okay,
there's
that's
different
interesting.
options. I'm not going to say it's easy. There's lots of expensive parts of this process, depending on, if it's IVF or surrogacy, whatever. But
What if you
there are
have the embryo
resources.
already? Then you're a little further
The
along, right?
Valley /
Yeah.
Persian style.
And when you have a producer willing to carry, we
Yeah.
can, save
That's
a lot of
right.
money. And
There you go.
We
That
can
show's gonna pay for
postmate
you.
that embryo here and do this right now.
I know,
We
right?
should stick around for part 2.
Yeah, right.
That's right.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah.
Kimberly, I don't know if you want to share. I mean, this has more to do with Layla and genetic testing, but Kimberly has a really sad, kind of crazy story that
Yeah.
involves genetics.
Yeah. It's just a good maybe example of how important this can be. And it's not my story, so I'm not going to share like names and specifics, but essentially we have a close friend, family friend that went through losing a child between that 20 to 22 week mark. It was their second baby. And come to find out that baby was a carrier for a cancer mutation. And out of precaution, the couple, because they had not previously done, to my understanding, had not done any genetic testing prior, they were encouraged to be tested in case they wanted another baby. Turns out one of the two parties, between the mom and dad, is not only the carrier, but also has a cancer. And so, in short, what was beautiful and also obviously heartbreaking in all of this is that baby saved the parent's life effectively. And I'm just sharing that as a showcase as to why you should do genetic testing up front, like Brian and I were lucky enough to do with you and Dr. Platt. And I have a question, if you don't mind.
Of course.
So I guess, so my family members have, and this is for folks listening, if you're in this bucket with me, my grandmother died of ovarian cancer, so we know that we have this history. So for folks that may have already had the genetic testing panels done, how do we know if we were tested for that particular risk?
That is the most perfect question that you can ask, because so many patients are like, I tested for that 10 years ago. It's clean. It's fine. I get the results, it's incomplete, not tested, and the technology changes rapidly, like from your first pregnancy to your second pregnancy 3 years ago to now. So it's always just important to check in and meet with somebody and say, like, these are my records, these are my family history, what's updated, what can I do, what could we have potentially missed? Because genetic testing becomes outdated pretty quickly. And it's not that your genetics change, it's that the ability to pick up a mutation and the genes that we know that could be associated with different things change. So like, for example, if you or if anybody has a family history of cancer and they had testing 5-10 years ago, it would be worthwhile to meet with a genetic counselor or a cancer specialist to review that and say, is this still sufficient? Or is there better testing that I can do to minimize my risk again?
And that would be you. We could come to you for that?
You could come to me. I would love to see you.
Oh, Genevie.
Okay, good shout
We
out.
would love to see you. But yeah, and then sometimes my patients will say like, oh, I did the cancer genetic testing. And I see it and it's like, no, they just did the carrier testing you do when you're getting pregnant to see if you and your partner carry any same shared disorders. That does not include any cancer testing in general. It has some things that could borderline, but that is not like BRCA1, BRCA2, which is some of the genes we'd recommend for a family history of ovarian cancer. So it's a lot of like misinformation, because a lot of the times these tests are being ordered and you don't know what's being drawn and what the purpose is. You're like, here's my arm. They do 14 vials. I didn't hear anything back, so it must be normal. You have to be in charge of your own medical health. Like every result, you should have it. It should be in your file. You should be able to access it and look at it. You cannot just depend on so many other people to be making those life-saving decisions for you.
Just in general with everything, you have to be on top of your medical
Correct.
health all
You
the time.
have to be your own advocate. Even if you
100%.
have the best doctors in the world, no one's going to fight for you harder than you're going to fight for yourself. And so it's just really important to know that if your doctor said, yeah, I ordered it and it's great, good, get a copy of it.
Yeah.
Look at it.
My dad, he had prostate cancer like 20 years ago, but his PSA was like not that off, but off for him. And he's like, okay, test. They're like, no, you're fine. He's like, no, he knew in his gut. He's like, go take it again. They took it again. He's like, and they're like, you're fine. He's like, take it in 5 more places. And then they found it. You know, Trevor's mom, you know, rest in peace, back in the day, she died in her 40s. My husband's mother went in, she's like, I have a lump. And they're like, no, it's nothing. And they sent her home and that was it. And then when she came back, it had spread everywhere. So you have to be on top of your health. You will know in your gut and fight for yourself.
Correct. You know this, but my sister delivered like almost 2 years ago and almost passed away during delivery. And if it wasn't for us being that annoying patient who kept saying something's wrong, like we know, and like the nurses would roll their eyes at us, and like if it wasn't for us being like, no, like we're not okay with this, something's wrong, and then within a minute they came in and they had her hooked up and took her back into the emergency room, and it was, you know, and that's when like, and my mom would always say, my mom's sister passed away from cancer, and her sister would tell, my mom is one of 8, and they were very lucky in that when, you know, Sarah's mom, when she was going through that, there were 7 siblings taking her to every single appointment, and it's just such a blessing to have that. But my mom's sister said, like, every patient needs an owner. Like, every patient needs somebody who's going to, like, fight for them, because otherwise you're just like a cog in this wheel, even if you have the best doctors, because those doctors are managing hundreds of other people. No one's going to manage you better than yourself.
It's
and
so easy for things to slip through cracks.
it's so easy.
You don't want to think about that.
No, and it's not a reflection of the doctor. It's just impossible to be.
But we're taught like, okay, he's got a white coat on. He knows.
No.
Whatever you say, you know, there's so many horror stories that we can talk about, but
Correct.
it's just trust psychologically. Like even when I went to hypnotherapy school, they would tell us if you go into somebody's home psychologically, you want to sit on this area because so they listen, right? Or there was this doctor that he was an Eastern doctor and the patient had all types of problems, but he could see a lot of it was just emotional. So he's like, I want you to go home, meditate, and they kind of rolled their eyes. Then they did another, this was on the documentary Heal. Then he did it again with another patient, but this time he came in with a white coat. And they were like, okay.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know.
You have to fight for yourself. I remember we had this patient who was an IVF pregnancy. They tested the embryo and the embryo testing was completely normal. Embryo testing is really good. It's not 100%, but it's really good testing. And then she did NIPT, which is a blood test you can do when you're pregnant that screens for common chromosome abnormalities like Down syndrome, et cetera. And that came back normal too. Ultrasound is normal. And she comes to us and she's like, I feel that there is something wrong here. I feel that this baby has Down syndrome. And we were like, okay, your screen for the Down syndrome screening is really good, really high sensitivity, high specificity. We talked, we went back and forth, and she's like, this is just my gut feeling. And we went over all the data, and she did a test called a CVS, where you can do that at the beginning of your pregnancy to test fetal cells, essentially.
Is it
and
before 14 weeks?
Yes, exactly. Okay. You do it between 11 to 14 weeks. You take a small piece of the placenta and you test it. And it was positive for Down syndrome. And like she just kind of fought for herself and she was like, I know. And that was valuable information for her. She became the most educated parent, but she needed that information and fought for herself. And even when I was like, this is a very low chance that this is, but she knew. And so it's just so important that you listen to yourself and you fight for yourself and you advocate for yourself because it can save your life and it can save somebody else's life as well.
Yeah. Wow. That's, yeah. So did she just call it like an intuition? That
She just
had?
like, she's like, I just knew.
Gut
I just
feeling.
knew. And the maternal instinct is something that we should never undervalue. I see it time and time again where patients come in and they're like, he's moving and everything's fine, but my gut says something's wrong. And we do an ultrasound and something is wrong that we didn't catch before. And so we should just never doubt that. And I think as women, we try to be like people pleasers and we try to be like the doctor's favorite patient by being like, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. But like that isn't going to win. You know, yes, you should be a good patient and you should be kind and respectful to your doctors. But if you feel like something's wrong, you should fight and advocate for that.
Yeah. In any area of your life.
Correct.
I think that applies.
Correct.
Listen to
The
your gut.
The best lesson I've learned is following your intuition and listening to your gut. Your stomach will always tell you.
Yeah.
And it's the best thing to lean in on all the way.
With Genevie, you guys don't just do genetic testing. You're now, you know, what sparked you creating that? What was missing in your field that you felt like, besides not wanting to work for anyone anymore and go on your own and be this boss?
Besides you encouraging me.
Business owner. But like, what was the gap that you saw, you know, because I know Stephanie saw like, okay, I can do this better. What was it that you wanted to do better?
A few things. Every patient would often meet with me. And if you get referred to a genetic counselor, it's not common. And when you do, it's often some point in the middle of your pregnancy. And it was often met with, they would meet me, understand what I do and say, but why didn't I meet with you earlier? Why didn't anyone tell me this existed? Why am I now 20 weeks pregnant learning I should have done this genetic testing that I could have done when I was 18 years old? Yeah. Right? And so like, I just kept hearing that. And at the same time, I was guiding a lot of friends, family, cousins on getting pregnant, on who the best doctor is, which prenatal vitamin you should take, which genetic test you should do at what time. And they would often say like, but none of my friends knew about this. None of my friends did this. And it kind of dawned on me that like there needs to be this emphasis on preconception care, education, and guidance that you're not getting. One is because 50% of pregnancies are unplanned. And two is oftentimes you're not referred to meet with a genetic specialist until midway through your pregnancy or unless something's gone wrong. it shouldn't be like that. We should be able to address this when you're just thinking about starting a family so that you know you're in control, you know what's at risk, what's not at risk. And that's what we do. And it's not just genetic testing for a pregnancy, it's also for you. We've had so many pregnant patients find out that they have breast cancer during the pregnancy,
Wow.
which is so hard because now you're in this place where what could save your life could harm your baby's life. Whereas, you know, oftentimes, like if I have a patient who has a strong family history of breast cancer, I'll say, like, let's have a mammogram before you're even trying to get pregnant. Like, let's establish that. Your dad passed away of a heart attack at 45. Well, pregnancy puts an extra load on your heart. Let's have you see a cardiologist and have an echo and an EKG before we're putting something else that's going to put an extra burden on you. So it's not just genetic testing that we do for you and a pregnancy, but it's for your whole family unit, you, your partner, your kid, anything that would need to make.
And your website is also for after you give birth, right?
Correct.
All the different, because I know when I gave birth, I knew nothing about anything. I wasn't around babies.
Right.
Kind of now looking back, I'm like, kind of thank God. Like I just went into it so blind, but I didn't know anything. But now you have, you know, and we all had to be part of that baby's first class to even get information. You know, obviously now times have changed and there's so much access. What else are you going to include, you know, on Genevie as far as like, okay, now I gave birth. Now what do I do?
So it is really forming, and what we're hearing back from our patients is that they, you know, a baby's born, and you remember we talked about this. You give birth, it's like going through this crazy thing, and they're like, "Okay, go home," and you're like,
Trevor
"No,
said,
no."
my husband gave this analogy. He was like, "It's like driving a truck, getting a car accident, and saying, okay, now get up."
I always think about that.
Go take care of your
I
baby.
remember.
You know,
I
but it's
remember that.
true. It's trauma.
When the nurses tell you to go home, you're like, "Go home where? Like, you want me to do what with this thing?" Like, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's just providing that like science-backed guidance. So instead of asking your sister or a Facebook group or going on TikTok, you can go to a resource that has
Yeah, they say
educate-
anything on TikTok these days.
I mean, you can find
People
anybody
need
to
to
say
stop
anything.
believing the things that some guy will just hold a camera
Yeah.
and make sure he's somewhere in the trees where he looks very like legit because there's trees in the background and suddenly he knows everything.
Yeah, before I created Genevie, I went to a lot of friends and family, a lot of my younger cousins who were, you know, either starting to have kids or thinking about kids. And I said, like, for a prenatal vitamin, you want to pick one. How do you figure out which is the best prenatal vitamin for you? And they're like, TikTok.
Oh
We go on
God.
TikTok. And I was like,
Instagram.
okay. And I was like, and how do you figure out what genetic testing you should do and which TikTok? And I was like, this is horrifying.
And also it was the number one thing searched for everything.
Right.
Unfortunately, that's where literally everyone was going insane.
Oh my God. That's
Wait, what was the number?
TikTok. It
It's
became
like your
a
number one
stat.
search engine.
Everyone,
Oh,
yeah.
number one. I
Yeah.
thought
More than
prenatal
Google.
vitamins were the number one
yeah.
thing searched.
Oh no, you're like, where is it? Where do I get it? Put it in the cart.
wow. Okay. So that's going to be developed. So I can do that all within the comfort of my home.
Yep. From preconception to delivery, we're here with science-backed guidance to help you for any question, from genetic testing to your prenatal to, is this makeup safe for me? Is it filled with phthalates and endocrine disruptors?
Ooh.
Which OB is a good match for me? I know all the OBs in the community. I've met with them. I know their personalities, and I can kind of match you with who the right person is for you.
Okay. So if people want to come to you and they're thinking about a baby, where do they go?
They
and
go
spell
to,
it.
They go to geneviehealth.com, GENEVIE health, HEALTH.com. And you can schedule a consultation and we talk and we figure out what you need.
And it's with you.
It's
And
with
it's
me.
for any age person.
Any age, any person, male, female, whether you want to have a baby, don't want to have a baby.
That's right.
You're worried about your family history. You want to know, what other proactive testing can I do? Like, what other genetic testing can I do to maximize my lifespan, my health, my longevity? We would do that too.
So important.
Thank
I'm so
you.
glad that you exist.
Thank you.
I'm so happy.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Stephanie, for you, if people are interested in surrogacy or think you could be an egg donor and sign up with you, or no?
Not egg donor, but I have resources.
Okay.
You can apply to become a surrogate
Okay.
with Family Match, but my company's FamilyMatchConsulting.com.
Okay.
And
All
we'll
right.
link everything in the show notes so that for those of you that want to work with these ladies or stalk them or learn from them or whatever, you'll be able to do that just by looking at the show notes as well.
Yay.
Yay. Thank you guys so much for coming. This is great
Thank you for
information.
having us.
And I just want people to not have shame around it. You know, bringing a child in this world, however you want to do it, is beautiful. And that's it.
Amen.
Thank you guys for being
Thank
here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in and listening to this week's episode of Heal to Feel. You can write in and ask your questions on our show's IG page at H2F Pod, and we'll address your questions on next week's episode. If this episode helped you, we would love for you to share it with your friends and family. Share the fun with all those that can benefit from a good laugh or cry with us. Please rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and we would greatly appreciate you.